Great. Hello. We are doing A Course in Miracles, the workbook for student, and we are on lesson 5. I'm going to read it for us. This is an interesting one. I am never upset for the reason I think. 1. This idea, like the preceding one, can be used with any person, situation, or event you think is causing you pain. Apply it specifically to whatever you believe is the cause of your upset, using this description of the feeling in whatever term seems accurate to you. The upset may seem to be fear, worry, depression, anxiety, anger, hatred, jealousy, or any number of forms, all of which will be perceived as different. This is not true. However, until you learn that form does not matter, each form becomes a proper subject for the exercises for the day. Applying the same idea to each of them separately is the first step in ultimately recognizing they are all the same. Number 2, when using the idea for today for a specific perceived cause of an upset in any form, use both the name of the form to which you see the upset and the cause which you ascribe to it. For example, I am not angry at for the reason I think. I am not afraid of for the reason I think. Number 3, but again, this should not be substituted for the practice periods in which you first searched your mind for the sources of upset in which you believe and forms of upset which you think result. Number 4, in these exercises, more than in the preceding ones, you may find it hard to be indiscriminate and to avoid giving greater weight to some subjects than others. It might help to proceed these exercises with the statement, there are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. Number 5, then examine your mind for whatever is distressing you, regardless of how much or how little you think it is doing so. Number 6, you may also find yourself less willing to apply today's idea to some perceived sources of upset than to others. If this occurs, think first of this. I cannot keep this form of upset and let others go. For the purposes of these exercises, then, I will regard them as all the same. Number 7, then search your mind for no more than a minute or so and try to identify a number of different forms of upset that are disturbing to you, regardless of the relative importance you may give them. Apply the idea for today to each of them using the name of both the source and the upset as you perceive it, and of the feeling as you experience it. Further examples are, I am not worried about for the reason I think. I am not depressed about for the reason I think. 3 or 4 times during the day is enough.
Okay.
So this is lesson 5. It's called I am never upset for the reason I think.
Interesting.
Yes. So what did you hear in that?
Obviously that it has a much deeper meaning than the surface level irritation that we feel on a continuous basis as we go through the day.
Well, and
Probably
what I'm hearing is there's no difference between the surface irritation and the big irritations.
right. It's just irritation. So we're making
just,
pearls.
Yeah. So I am not angry at my empty water glass for the reason I think. It's kind of a silly example, but because I just use I'm not angry, so I have nothing to point at. But
right.
At some point there might be something to think about. Oh, that driver was a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not angry at this driver for the reason I think I am.
Okay, well that's a fairly solid one because that can happen constantly when you are trying to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And so if we just take that as an example, if somebody cuts you off, like there was one day I was driving around and people cut me off 3 different times. It was like my car wasn't even on the road. It was weird. And
Yeah.
I thought to myself, "I need to get home because
It
this
feels
doesn't feel
unsafe.
safe." That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm not a nervous driver at all, but it just seemed to be such a pattern that I thought, "Yeah, this is pretty wonky."
Yeah.
Um, but I so, instead of being upset at the driver, are we supposed to infer that, you're in fear of having a car crash as opposed to the driver being a
Exactly.
jerk?
I am not afraid of being safe for the reasons I think.
Mhm.
I am not upset at this driver for the reasons that I think. I've said this to a few people lately. When we don't feel our feelings, it
Mhm.
gets put onto a conveyor belt. And at some point, kind of like a bingo thing,
Right.
that thing comes off the, conveyor belt and comes back. So
Mhm.
we have to feel our feelings.
Yeah.
And quite often, we're not upset for the reasons we think we are.
Right.
We might be triggered so that we can feel an emotion. That's just my
Yep.
opinion,
Yeah.
based on the stuff that I've studied the last couple of years,
Mhm.
that we're not upset for the reasons we think we are because it's
Right.
come around on the conveyor belt and it's something we've avoided feeling because it might be uncomfortable or make us not feel safe or whatever. So we go, no, nope. Why do I feel this way? And you go anxious and then you're like, I'm going to go eat something or I'm going to avoid or
Yes.
whatever. So yeah, so then it goes back on the conveyor belt because we've sort of postponed it until we're ready to
Mhm.
feel it.
Right.
So yeah. So I'm not angry at the driver for the reason I think.
But what if he's a really shitty driver?
Nonetheless, I'm not worried about paying rent for the reasons I think.
Okay, so what does that mean? Like, if you
Um,
just think about your situation where you pay rent or, obviously we pay rent as well. You think you have a mortgage, but you're still paying rent, right? It's not,
yeah, yeah,
it's an illusion.
it's an illusion, yes, but I'm not worried about I'm not worried about paying rent for the reasons I think. I'm fearful, I'm anxious. It's an uncomfortable feeling.
Mhm.
So it's that conveyor belt again when it's coming back around and spitting out at me. Oh, you know, um,
So it's just coming through that portal of
yeah,
the
I
rental
can,
issue. I see.
yeah. And the last lesson was thoughts. These thoughts do not mean anything.
Mhm. That's right.
So I'm worried I can't pay my rent. Yeah, well, you always do,
Right.
right? We always do. We always figure it out. And it's always done. So it's kind of a funny one, right? That one particular.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Well,
So
it's
search your
was
mind for no more than a minute or so and try to identify a number of different forms of upset that are disturbing you, regardless of relative importance you may give them.
hmm.
The upset may seem to be fear, worry, depression, anxiety, anger, hatred, jealous, or any number of forms, all which will be perceived as different. This is not true. Hmm.
Yeah.
The first step is ultimately recognizing they are all the same.
All our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says, I am never upset for the reason I think. Never.
Hmm.
I am never upset for the reason I think. There are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting that. So we basically just attach things to these
We're,
feelings.
I think we're just acknowledging that we're having feelings.
Right. And because we don't know what to do with that, we put a label on it.
Yes.
Hmm.
Do you ever find when you're like I don't want to talk about that on this one, but I just had my international student leave.
Mm-hmm.
And to justify it, I'm like, well, he was such a bad person, blah, blah, blah. And we have the story that we tell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not really upset for the reason that I think I am.
Right.
And that child doesn't deserve me blabbing on or gossiping about him. That's just
Mm.
unfair, putting
Right.
bad energy out in the world, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I think it's not, we're just supposed to recognize that we have a feeling, whether it be fear, worry, depression, anxiety, anger, hatred, jealousy, or any number of forms. We're just
Mm-hmm.
supposed to recognize that we have this feeling and feel it and not
Right.
tie it to something to
Mm-hmm.
justify and to make meaning out of it, because that was a couple lessons ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last lesson too, just your thoughts do not mean anything.
Right.
I do not understand anything I see in this room. So it kind of, there's no meaning to, it's just a feeling that comes up when it's done that conveyor belt and come back around for us to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried about this discussion. Not that I'm having, see, I'm not even having feelings about it. I'm not worried about having this discussion for the reasons I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not depressed about for the reason I think. Okay, but again, in these exercises, more than in the preceding ones, you may find it hard to be indiscriminate and to avoid giving greater weight to some subjects than others. It might help to precede these exercises with the statement, there are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind.
So
So
it's
none are
really the
bigger than the others.
disturbance that you're just trying to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
This disturbance in the force.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
just sit with it.
Yeah.
Should you be sitting with it until it dissipates?
Um,
Because now you're thinking about it, and then your thoughts don't mean anything.
exactly.
I'm going around in a circle here.
Exactly. I think that's
Yeah.
the whole idea.
Mm.
I think it's, well, and I'm not upset. I'm never upset for the reason I think. Um, I cannot keep this form of upset and let others go. For the purposes of these exercises, then I will regard them all the same. So there's nothing bigger than the other.
Okay.
And then apply the idea for today to each of them using the name of both the source and of the upset as you perceive it and of the feeling you experience it. And maybe we're not supposed to add any meaning to it, which is why all those things, nothing, nothing.
Still about
What is lesson
attachments.
one? Nothing I see means anything.
Mm-hmm.
I have given everything, lesson two, I've given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. Lesson three, I do not understand anything I see in this room. Lesson four, these thoughts do not mean anything. They are like the things I see in this room that don't mean anything. And I'm never upset for the reason I think. So don't be attached. I think we're to recognize that nothing means it.
Right.
It's just the feelings show up and we're supposed to not give anyone more importance than the other.
Right. Yeah.
And to feel it. And I think maybe they haven't told us to feel it yet. We're just supposed to know that our thought doesn't mean anything and we're having this thought and it's not for the reason we think it is.
Right. It's just
So
for
we
the
take the
time to
attach
process it.
yeah, we take the attachment off and that doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
We can then we can feel it and just I think you're right. Just I think the result will be that we feel it and we just let it go.
Right. All right.
It's
Now
kind
then,
of
more to chew on.
more to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think we'll wrap it up here and I will stop the recording. Have a great day.